Well, you're not very applicable in this chapter, unfortunately. As nice as you're not applicable in this chapter. These, however, are. For my dummy reversey horns. So, a lot of One Piece news this week. I know that there's a lot of stuff that's like One Piece related this week. I know there's a thing about Oda dropping the chest with something written on it inside of the chest into the bottom of the ocean. Whether or not that's the actual what the One Piece is or something else, I don't know. Barring someone finding it, which I think there was something I saw about, like, no, they've kind of located where they think it is. Okay, good luck finding it. I guess we'll find out what's inside of it at some point in time. But chapter. So we have 1176 titled With Pride, or It Is My Pride, or something like that. So with pride, with pride is a very important thing that we see in this chapter from Dorian Bragi. So first, we have one of the cover page spreads, color page spreads, and it's actually, I believe it's a redraw of volume 12, although in this case, it has all 10 of the Straw Hats on it, running away with a bunch of treasure, which is just funny. And I believe I think the original one has the Mary in it, and then it's all the crew at that point in time running away from it, which is, I think, would have been just like the first 6 of them at that point in time. I think Chopper was around at that point in time. So it would have just been like the first 6 of them or so, if that. If not that, then just the first 5. Running away with a bunch of treasure, and I love how they just all look happy on the cover page. They usually all look happy in the cover pages, which is nice, but it's just nice here. So we get to find out where Franky was the past couple of chapters. He was off with Lilith, and Lilith was doing something science-y. So technically we do see Loki in this chapter, and he is mentioned, but he is not the focal point of this chapter. Him and Luffy are not the focal point of this chapter. It is focused on more of some of the on the other Straw Hats. So we see from a distance, we get Franky's reaction of seeing Loki use his Thornheim attack, his lightning attack that he used on the Mumas at the end of the last chapter, and it's just echoing across the land. So Franky's just like, what the heck kind of party is that? Because Franky has some idea of what's going on. He may have heard some of the broadcast of what's going on with the kids, but he hasn't really been involved in like trying to get to the kids. But he is with Lilith and Bonnie, which is kind of where I thought he was supposed to be, because that was kind of like we saw them together, and then I guess they must have split off from Ripley, because they'd been with Ripley, and then Ripley went to go help save the kids. So I guess Lilith and Franky and Bonnie kind of all split off from them. And Lilith has gone back to the giant box that she had, that they had Vegapunk in, the clone, younger version of Vegapunk. And so Franky has Bonnie sitting on his head, which is just adorable. Bonnie doesn't do much in this chapter. Doesn't really do anything. I think she has like one line, if that. So Bonnie's just sitting on Franky's head. Lilith is digging through this box, pulling out stuff, and Franky is just like, what are you doing, Lilith? Wasn't Vegapunk supposed to be inside that box? She's like, good thing I left it near the school. Not even addressing the fact that Vegapunk is supposed to be inside of the box. She has other things inside of the box. It's a Time Lord, it's a TARDIS box. It's a Mary Poppins carpet bag box. Take your pick. It's bigger on the inside. That would not surprise me at all if Vegapunk invented bigger on the inside technology. Just for this gag. And she pulls out these 2 discs, and she's like, this here's the Omni Drain Converter, or the ODC. And Franky and Bonnie are just like, huh? And she's like, oh, and you should be able to use the hover since we're on Elbaf. And he, what? Huh? Bonnie and him are both very confused by this. And Lilith continues, can't you feel it? The energy here flows everywhere. Have you even tried using something other than cola to move around? And Franky is just like baffled by that idea. Like, what do you mean by that? There's other energy besides cola? Huh? It's like, wait, Franky is looking at Lilith the way that Chip looks at me when I ask him a weird question. What do you mean by that? So we kind of cut back, and I believe we are cutting back to where the other Straw Hats are, because we see where Nami's group is, with Saul. Saul is still lying in the pile of thorny vines, as they are looking over at what's going on. And they're like, just like, the fire is spreading. And it's like, this has to be a nightmare. Is this the day the world ends? Did you see that? That dragon's been way bigger than Kaido. I'm assuming this is Usopp freaking out. And he's like, but Luffy was riding on his back. So that means it's on our side. And Nami and Jinbei are focused on, okay, gotta go put the fire out on the school. Usopp is just freaking out over here. Nami and Jinbei both get good moments in this chapter. Jinbei gets an awesome moment in this chapter, and I love it. And Nami's just like, that idiot is always doing whatever comes to mind. Zeus, are you ready? Yes. So Nami had Zeus doing something. Zeus was not tied up with the rest of them, because I would assume the arrow powers Gunko has could technically apply to tying up a cloud homie. But I guess Zeus was like doing something else for the time being. And we're going to find out what that is in a second. And Jinbei is running, and he's like, this won't be easy, but let's move before something happens to the kids. So they know that the kids are safe at the moment, but they need, or at least the group of kids that were the hostages were safe. There's other kids that were still at the school where the other teachers are, where the school and the library is. And then we see Robin off in the background, and she's by Saul trying to figure out how to get him out of the thorns. She's like, Saul! And then we have a different shot that's her next to Saul's head. The scale is kind of off a little bit right here. But like, Sanji is showing up, and Saul's like, sorry, but I can't stay here. And Sanji's like, are you all right? And Nami's like, let's go. Zeus, it's an emergency. And Zeus shows up, and we get this great bit where we get over to the school, and we see the school and the library are still both engulfed in flames. For as long, well, to be fair, I guess we don't know the exact amount of time that they've been burning, because we keep cutting around to different places, plus we were in the flashback for so long, which makes it seems like the school has been burning for even longer than it actually has, but it's not as long, I guess, as we thought it had been burning. That's good, I guess. And we see just like the school and the library are just like engulfed in flames. We don't see any of the other teachers or the kids, and we don't see Biblo. But Nami's like, we've got to put the fires out at the school and the library. And Zeus has shown up, and he is just like in the giant, kind of like how he has like the black thundercloud mode that he goes into, but he's still kind of like in his smiling cloud mode, but he's just like waterlogged because he has been just gathering up so much water from the atmosphere, probably up in the clouds, gathering all of that up, so that way he's all fully charged for what Nami wants him to do. And he's just like, leave it to me, Nami, I'm already full. And Sanji is, of course, that's our Nami-san, always on point. And Nami jumps, and so her outfit looks different in this. I'm assuming just because of how the translation went. This is one of the edited versions, because Nami is not nearly as unclothed as she was before. To be fair, I like this version of the outfit, but this is not the way that it is. And we have powering rain tempo, and we just have it. It's one of Nami's attacks that she does in tandem with Zeus and her climb attack. But this one is not one of her thunder tempo attacks that we're used to seeing her use, like she uses against the most of the time when she uses her tempo attacks. This is raining tempo. This is just like this huge deluge of rain coming down in order to try to put out the flames. Now, rain is capable of putting out fire, but there has to be a lot of it. And it has to be very, very heavy and very heavy rain, and has to last for long enough to start actually putting out the fire. And Robin is screaming, please, Nami, Zeus. And Saul has gotten up, and he's carrying Robin in his hands. We'll see this in a second, but he's gotten up, and he's like, is that rain? Because like Saul isn't super familiar with what the Straw Hats are capable of. I think he gets what's going on here. And like Zeus is trying his hardest to like put out the rain, put out the fire, but it's not working, unfortunately. He is trying and trying to put out the rain. So good to put out the fire. So good on you, Zeus. And now we have Killingham showing up, and he has one of the Mumas with him. And he is like, hey, hold on a second. That's not what was promised. Who said anything about putting out the fire? And Nami's screaming, ah, a monster, watch out, Zeus. And we do know that Nami cares about Zeus. But it's just like, Zeus is trying his hardest to like put out the rain, to like get the rain out so that way he can put out the fire. And if it had lasted longer, I think it may have at least done enough to start dampening the fire to the point where like other efforts would have been useful to help get it out. We know that Jinbei put out part of the fire before on one of the branches when it was getting really close to the kids. He was able to put that out. And I think on a different area that was on fire, we know Jinbei put the fire out that way. So I think Zeus may have at least been in a good spot, and then maybe Jinbei could have helped with that. We're not going to see that in this part. Jinbei's still going to do something cool. Unfortunately, Zeus is going to get eaten like cotton candy in a second. And Killingham, who is he's in his hybrid form where he's like his centaur-ish looking form. So he's got like his human face. And he's like, you promised you'd throw away the history of the world. And this is already changed from one of the other translations I kind of read earlier. But the Muma, which looks like a giant snake, has just like Zeus. And they're like, oh god, that's not good. And I think it's Robin screaming Zeus, and Robin and Nami screaming Zeus. And Tal's like, is that a snake? No, it's a lindworm. So we get another close-up of this Muma, which is not one of the ones we've seen before, and it's what scares me the most, lindworm. In regards to this. Now, a lindworm is just something from Norse mythology, or from, well, it's a mythical creature from northern, western, and central European folklore. So it kind of has a good chunk of area that it spreads over. And it's traditionally just like this very, very giant serpent type creature that generally lives very deep in the forest. And it can kind of be seen as a type of a dragon, but it's not 100% a dragon. It's mostly just like a giant snake. And like a worm in this case is not like a worm that crawls on the ground. This is a worm like how there's like worm is like there's types of dragons that are a type of worm. So that's kind of just what that is. So this thing has shown up. It has on Zeus, which makes everybody not happy except Killingham. But, like, Nami is very concerned about Zeus and is screaming. And Sanji now shows up. And he's like, our last resort for putting out the fire was... And, wait, who's that over there? And they see Killingham. And Jinbei is getting closer, and he's like, he must be one of the 3 demons. Is he one of the 3 demons? I think they figured out that they are somehow connected to the celestial dragons, because like stuff I think was mentioned over the Denden Mushi about Marie Joie. So I think there's some figuring out there that that's involved, but they don't know that it's specifically the holy knights that are attacking, or that they are the gods' knights that are attacking. So they're still kind of referring to them as like the demons. And we hear something over an intercom, mobilizing the ODCR. Huh? Jinbei, confused. And then out of the forest out of the woods area, come flying a bunch of the little disc things that Lilith pulled out. And they're just like spinning and worming. Like, they're just kind of like a flying Roomba, is essentially what they look like. It's like a flying Roomba with like little pegs on the outside as it spins. And it says, collecting thermal energy, and it starts sucking up the fire. And we get this very interesting transition because it's like, as they're flying, there's several of them, they're like sucking up the fire. And it's literally like freezing the area. Now, to be fair, it was just raining. And I guess maybe that's causing it to freeze because it's essentially pulling all of the heat out of that part of the air and then freezing whatever water was still there, is I'm assuming what's going on. Plus with Elbaf, there's probably a good chunk of just ambient water all over the place because of the island clouds that are around the island. So they're just like spinning and flying around. And Killingham is like, what the hell is that thing? Because he is very confused. And I don't blame him, because now it looks like the entire area of the school and the library is frozen. This looks like Aokiji showed up and went, just ice everywhere. Which is actually kind of quite poetic, because, of course, during the flashback that we get for Ohara, for Robin, it is, Aokiji is, yes, the one who freezes Saul. Saul ends up surviving, which I kind of think may have been Aokiji's plan in the first place. He just wasn't 100% sure if it was going to work. And then, of course, Aokiji is the one who allowed Robin to escape. Allowed her to escape Ohara and that fate of being killed on the island with everybody else. So there is kind of that thought there that there is this like poetic thing, the fact that this looks like it has been frozen over. Now this might get changed a little bit in the anime in regards to, because we don't know exactly what color it's supposed to be, but it's probably, because it just looks like it's frozen. And it even says, the fire went out. No, it was frozen. So it's just like, all the heat's gone, everything is frozen. I don't quite think that's how that works, but sure, I'll buy it for this, because the school and the library are no longer on fire. And ice is a much easier thing to have to get through at this point in time than fire. So I'll take that. So Robin is just like, but what's going on, as her and Saul are arriving? Like, Saul's running and he had Robin in his hands. And they're like, incredible. The fires at the school and the library have been extinguished. So, it also could have been something along the lines where it's just like, Lilith, the machines, the ODCRs, OCDRs, whatever they were, are like, suck out all the heat, freezes everything in the process. I mean, that's not the way that fire extinguishers work. I don't know if there is certain science that can back this up, or if it's just Oda going like, no, it's future stuff that Vegapunk built. Don't look at it too closely. Here, Frankie, Super Cola. We're going to use it for a fun thing. So Lilith now has grabbed a hold of one of them that has come back to her. And she has a can, the bottle of like what Frankie's cola comes in. And she's like, natural disasters are nothing more than clusters of energy. And she is like stuck it to the cola bottle and is like filling the cola bottle. And then she takes the cola bottle, throws it at Frankie. Bonnie is no longer sitting on Frankie's head, which is going to be good for a second. And Lilith tosses the bottle at Frankie, and she's like, Frankie, try using one of these. And he's like looking at the cola bottle, and it's like shit, like it's vibrating in his hand. Like this, he's like, the bottle's about to burst. And she's like, I call this beauty Super Vega Cola. Is what Lilith is saying. And she's getting like the kind of deranged look on her face a little bit. Super Vega Cola. Your natural mechanisms, your internal mechanisms are brilliantly engineered. It's on par with the pacifistas, which kind of makes sense because that's a giant compliment to Frankie, that he is, on par with the pacifista in regards to how he has set up his internal mechanisms. Awesome. We know the Straw Hats can defeat the pacifistas on their own now. Generally, most of them can beat them pretty easily individually, but that's still a high compliment coming from Vegapunk. And it makes sense because, of course, Frankie designed this body that he currently has based around what was in the workshop on Baltimore, where he was in Vegapunk's workshop there. So that makes sense. So I like that. And she's like, on par with one of the pacifista. But when I heard you were running on cola, plain old cola, I was shocked. And Vegapunk was very surprised by that as well when Frankie mentioned it to him. And she's like, listen, Frankie, fuel is passion. And if you drink that, your power will explode. And Frankie's like a little concerned about that, which is fair. We cut to Zeus, who is now inside of another dark, cramped area, like he was much, much prior in Wano when he got trapped inside of the box. Trapped inside of the box by a kid-in-law. And he's like, it's pitch dark in here! And he's scared again, which is just funny. Nami, help! And we cut outside of the Lindworm as like he is like swallowing Zeus is happening, and Nami is just like, Zeus, I'm coming. So she's gonna go try to save them. We have Killingham still up in the air, and Robin is like, Saul, do you think we can reach the library? And he's like, of course. we're worried too, aren't you? You're worried too, aren't you, Robin? After all, that's where all the history left behind by O'Hara is. Which, yes, that is very much something that Robin is worried about, but she is also very much concerned about the children and the other teachers and stuff that are there. So now we cut to the Killingham is ordering the Lindworm. It's like, dream demons, swallow the library. Don't let them have hope. So this giant worm, is opening its mouth and getting ready to the library. And of course, this is not good. And we get this close-up of Killingham where he just looks deranged. After all, a new world can only be born once history is cut away. No. One of the entire points of not just Robin's character and O'Hara itself, but of One Piece itself, is that history makes us where we are today. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Those who have not learned from what happened in the Void Century and all of the other ages that have happened in the One Piece world are doomed to repeat that cycle again and again and again in some shape or form. Yes, parts of it may end up being better than what they were before. By the end of the story, stuff may be better than they presently are. Doesn't mean they're going to be on par with the way that they were in the first world before everything got go kablooey. Probably nuclear weapons of some kind because, humans. But yeah, yeah, you can still make a whole new world and still have all of this other history. That is not the way that is supposed to go. But that is what the Celestial Dragons, the God Knights are probably taught and everything like that. Like, whatever history we do not approve of does not matter. And I do not approve of this history, so therefore it does not matter. So we cut to, because we know that there is the Warrior Spring, the lake that is near the school. Hi. Sugar baby. I love you. Yeah, I know. You're a good baby. You're my good little baby. You are the baby and I love you. Shake. Good boy. Good shake. So now we cut to the lake, the Warrior Spring, and Jinbei is swimming across it, and she's like, Nami, leave him to me. I'll make that monster cough Zeus back up with us, with my Seiken, which is like the Fishman Karate. And we cut back to Killingham, and he's like, look at that, a fishman, the ugliest race in the world. Makes me want to puke. Good thing I'm wearing a mask, which just goes back to how we have it that, like, the Celestial Dragons view breathing anything of the lower realm that the plebs have breathed as contaminated. That's why whenever they go down to Sabaody or other places, they have the bubble helmets. They have the air purifiers that they wear so that way they are not breathing the common air that we breathe. They are breathing purified air, I guess, or whatever stupid thing that they breathe. And of course, we know how much the Celestial Dragons look down upon fishmen. We saw this. Yes, we do. They don't like fishmen. He made a funny noise. Come here. I can pet you while I talk. Come here. Come here. Or you can stare at me. So, it's unsettling when he stares at me. I'm sorry. When he just stares at you. That's what dogs do. You can go lay down or go downstairs or come lay on the bed. I'm doing this. I know you have no idea what I'm saying. So, we know how much the Celestial Dragons despised fishmen. We saw this during Sabaody and various other points throughout the story where we are, and during Fishman Island with the flashbacks and everything. So we're aware of how much they despised fishmen. And Sanji is showing up, seeing Killingham, and he's like, this whole chosen people thing is typical of Celestial Dragons. And Sanji is getting very angry, which I love, because he's getting angry on behalf of not Nami or Robin, but on behalf of Jinbei, which is great because we know back during Fishman Island, Jinbei and Sanji kind of didn't quite see eye to eye because Sanji was angry at Jinbei because Jinbei was part of the reason that Arlong did what he did and had killed Belmir, which caused Nami so much pain. So Sanji and Jinbei didn't quite get along at that point in time. Things got better throughout the rest of the arc, and then they got better during Whole Cake Island because, of course, Jinbei is helping save Sanji. And all of that, and he's part of the crew at that point in time, so there's that. And, we saw them kind of pair up a little bit during Egghead Island. And so it's just kind of like that nice thing to see, and of course, they've spent more time around each other. And of course, Nami does not blame Jinbei for what happened with Arlong. She blames Arlong for what happened with Arlong. So he doesn't have that quite as much of a fuel as he used to. And he knows that Jinbei is a good guy at this point in time. By this point in time, he knows Jinbei is a good guy, and he is, a very strong member of the crew. And while he is annoyed that Jinbei has a higher bounty than him, he does not have the rivalry with Jinbei that he does with Zoro, which is just funny. So, Sanji is just like, if your head is too big, you can't tell this is Jinbei, a former warlord of the sea. Is your head so big that you can't tell that this is Jinbei, a former warlord of the sea? You committed a crime. You committed the crime of insulting a member of my crew. I think it's time I put a hole in that aquarium of yours. I love that. I love that line. So, he's getting angry on Jinbei's behalf because of Kiringham insulting Jinbei. And then we cut over to Franky, who is now just, on cola steroids as he's bouncing up and down super. what a jump was that? My muscles are screaming with this one hit'll make any monster run with its tail between its legs. So they're all Jinbei's getting ready to do something, Sanji's getting ready to do something, and Franky is getting ready to do something, and we're gonna get a great double page spread in a second with 3 of them. So Franky is gearing up for super strong, and one of his strong lefts or strong rights. And then Jinbei is just Fishman Karate secret technique. And, Sanji is powering up Ifrit Janbei. And the Lindworm has no idea what's coming for it. It does not know. And Kiringham does not know what is about to happen to him. And it's just wonderful. So, Jinbei, Franky, and Sanji's attacks all hit at the same time. Franky hits the Lindworm's head with his super strong Dexter, or which is just a Dexter, your digits. Super strong left or right, hits him, hits it so hard it rips off the head. Zeus shoots out of the neck. Woo, yay, I'm safe. And then we cut down to the bottom of the Lindworm, where Jinbei was doing his, Fishman Karate, his brick fist into the bottom of the Lindworm, which is just causing more pain to this thing. And then we are cutting to Sanji, who did his Ifrit Janbei, Kongase? I apologize. French is not a language I can do very well of. Spanish I'm better at, just because I took Spanish in high school and college, but French was... no. And Sanji comes slamming his foot down on Kiringham's head with the Ifrit, and he is just and just slamming him into the ground, slamming him so hard, which I just love. And there's another shot at the bottom for this is a big double page spread. So we have the Lindworm is just falling apart. And there is a note that what Jinbei is using is Outlaw Piercing Strike. Is kind of the way that it works. Is the title of his attack, the name of the attack. So they're kind of down. I think we cut back to Kiringham in a moment, and Kiringham, at some point, we cut back to Kiringham, and he is just sitting there, and, his helmet is just destroyed. It is just, fallen to pieces. Which is just so good, because that's what he effing deserves. Very much so. Just, lying on the ground with just, his helmet in pieces. I think there's a shot of that. I could be wrong. Cutting to the West Village, where Dory and Broggy were in their dummy reversey forms. Zoro had them attack each other. We're going to get a resolution to that in a moment. So, we are to the village. We see that because we have like Dorian Broggy there with the giant warrior pirates turned into demons versus the warriors of the West Village, which is Streusen. Yes, it's Streusen. Streusen is here. No, Stanson, Harding, Jarl, and Zoro are here. And they're getting ready, and we see the turned giant warrior pirates, the Domi Reversied ones, getting closer and closer and starting to attack and cause damage. And like, Zoro and the others are like, they're unleashing attacks on them, but they're only doing so much because they have the regeneration ability crackling back together. And Harding is just like, they keep regenerating even after being cut down so many times. And Stanson is just like, I know every single one of them. It's hard having to hurt them like this. And that's one of the things that is that Imu is betting on with the Domi Reversing. It was the same thing with using it against Rox with his family. Is Domi reversing Rox's family because it's supposed to make you hesitate to attack your own family or your own friends or these people that you know, because you're less likely to want to attack someone who you know. And that's the same thing with Domi Reversing, is like it turns someone who was your friend or your family or your ally, flips them, makes them evil. They have no qualms anymore about attacking you, but you're supposed to still have qualms about trying to attack them. And that's what's happening here. And like we see the bunch of the Domi Reversing giants just getting closer and closer as like they keep getting hit, and like the ones who are not Domi Reversing are having to try to avoid being in between them so they don't get flipped. None of the ones that we have seen have been flipped, so they seem to be doing a good job about avoiding that, which is good. They're probably using as many ranged attacks as they can, so they're not getting super close. And it's just like, isn't there some other way to stop them? And then we hear 2 battle cries, and Demon Dory and Demon Broggy have shown up and have sliced at a bunch of the others that are the Domi Reversing giants. And like the other members of the crew are just like captains who are not Domi Reversing captains. And then we cut to Dory and Broggy, and Broggy is just like, are you there, Dory? And Broggy is just like, barely. No, sorry. Dory is talking right, and then it's like, barely, Broggy. So it's like, we see that they are fighting against the Domi Reversing. There was enough damage done to them by what Zoro had them do where they hit each other, that like what we saw with Harald, where he comes back to his senses enough that he is able to try to fight against this again. He has control back of his body for a bit of time. I think we saw this at pieces with Rox, with like him screaming inside of his own head, and Garp and Roger being able to hear it. And like Zoro was like, okay, they're somehow there. And like Dory and Broggy have shown up, and like they like attacked the Domi Reversing giants behind them, and now they have like fallen, and they're like kneeling and panting as they're in front of Jarl and the others, and just like, it was a disgrace to go. It would be a disgrace to go on living after hurling baseless insult at the great Lord Jarl, and even worse, trying to take his head. Our honor would be stained for generations. Yeah, that can't happen. I agree with you. And they're just like, because of course we know that honor and all of that stuff is so, their pride is so important to Dory and Broggy. That's why they were on, Little Garden fighting for over 100 years, is because of their pride. And, and their pride and the pride of Elbath, and the, pride that it goes, the pride of their legacy and all of that stuff. And like, they come back to themselves. That's also, I'm assuming, part of what it is with Domi Reversing, is that you get Domi Reversing by Imu, you end up, it makes you attack your friends, your family, your loved ones, all of that one. Your home, it makes you attack your home. And then Imu turns you back to normal, and you see the carnage that you caused around you, because you still have those memories. Your allegiance is just flipped toward Imu. And now your mind is back to normal, and you're able to see the carnage that you caused, the pain that you caused, the people that you killed and that you hurt and all of that stuff. And it's supposed to make you just like fall into despair, I assume. And that's like Dory and Broggy are like being able to fight back against that for the moment. And they're like, it's like, certainly I'd never yield to a demon. So they are aware of what they have to do. And we have them thinking, it's like, farewell, comrade. These past 100 years of battle have been quite the thrill. And we get like a little flashback to like them clashing with each other. And it's, very similar to the panel that we saw 2 chapters ago where where Zoro made them slice at each other. And we see them, they are lifting up their weapons, their axe and their sword. And it's just like, we are warriors of Elbath. And they slice at each other, and one slice, they slice off each other's heads. And it's just like, then all that's left for us is to die with great pride, which is like where the title of the chapter comes from. With pride, with great pride. And they slice off each other's heads because they're the ones who can do damage to each other. And just like every bit, like we see Hyrodine and Stanson and Jarl and even Zoro just like, chiefs. Like they're just like, no. And, even Zoro is like very unhappy about this, very upset about this because like he likes Dory and Broggy. He doesn't want them to die. His intention was to make them hurt each other to kind of like put them out of commission for the time being, not make them kill each other. But this is just like one of those moments where like that would have been chapter ending at some point in time. I will not blame the episode, like when this gets animated. I would not be mad necessarily if the episode ends with that moment there. And just like everybody screaming out about, Captain Dory, Captain Broggy, why did you do that? And like just like all of that stuff, like just like, and that's like how the episode ends with like, to be continued. Like, that would be a great way to end the episode. That would have been a great way to end the chapter, because then all of us would have been like, because, like, I think there's a break next week. All of us would have been like, are they dead? Are they, like, dead? Are Dory and Broggy gone? These characters that we have known for over 1,000 chapters. Like, are they dead? This is not good. Are they dead? That would have been, like, the question that would have been on everybody's minds for the next, 2 weeks until the next chapter comes out, until 1177 comes out. And I would have just been like, oh god, like that would have been like, oh my god, are they actually dead? It's like, is that what happened? But that's not where the chapter ends. We have more, and we see where their bodies land, and they are starting to glow, like the Domi Reversi energy, the black flames are kind of coming off of them and like flipping them over and like flipping them around, and like they shrink and they are shifting back to normal. And like Zoro's like, and like we see them lying on the ground and they're healed. Dory and their heads are back where they're supposed to be, and they're healed. And they start getting up. So they're not dead. I mean, like, I know that going into the review, but still, it's like, oh god. Like, that, like, if they had left it at, like, the last scene as, like, them slicing each other, killing each other. And it's like, and it's the fact that they're, like, best friends, brothers at arms, comrades type of thing. That they were the ones to end each other. Like, that would have just been, oh god, type of thing to end on the chapter. Again, not what happened, and we see Dory and Broggy getting back up, and they're like, what? They're back to normal. Their heads are still intact. It's like, everybody is just like, oh god, yay, yay, yay. This is good. Dory and Broggy are not dead. Awesome. What are we going to do now? So Dory and Broggy are getting up. Stanson and Hyrodine are, preparing to help fight. And it's just like, you have to die once to undo the demonic transformations. Okay. That works, is what Stanson is saying. It's like, okay, we can work with that. And like Dory and Broggy, like Dory's, like Broggy's arm seems to be healed. We know that like Emu shot off part of Broggy's arm. And that could be something that gets changed in like the official release. But like he's got his shield on and he's got his axe. So he seems to have all of his weapons. And he's like, our bodies may turn into these horrible walking corpses. But once we flip ourselves over again, our bodies return to perfect health. And Zoro's like, oh yeah? Then all we have to do is go for it, right? And Hyrdine's like, yeah, no need to hold back. So if we deal a fatal blow, they'll go back to normal. And Dory's like, whether it's cutting off their heads or ripping out their hearts. No, wait, they're our comrades. We can't do that. It's like, okay, yeah, no, we're not. We can cutting off their heads. Okay, we can work with that. We're not going to rip out their hearts. That's not going to help this situation. And then we see like the line of the Domi Reversi giants are just like, huh? Like, okay, maybe this isn't good anymore. Maybe we don't have the upper hand anymore. And we have someone shouts out like, get the kids inside. Like, get the kids out of here. They don't need to see this. Some of these might be their relatives. And then we have like, this is like the ending double page spread with like all four, with like Stanson and Bragi and Hyrudine and Dory, and then like Zoro in the middle, like all of them getting ready, and then Zoro's just like, shall I? And it's just like, I feel bad for them. My heart sinks and my chest aches. I hate having to do this, but brace yourselves. So, and then we have a break next week. So it's like all of them just preparing to chop down as many of the other crew members, the other Domi Reversi giants, as they need to, because if they don't stop them, then they have the ability to Domi Reversi other giants, and that's not going to help. I can take this off now because Dory and Bragi are no longer Domi Reversi'd, so I don't need the horns for that. But it's like very much of this like, okay. Yay, Dory and Bragi are back. They seem okay. I think we see some bruises and scrapes on them, but they seem mostly fine. So they're back to full health, hopefully. Because, like, that would have been one of the questions, because, like, we saw in the flashback with Rox, with Garp and Roger fighting against Rox, we saw with them that it took a lot for them to finally get Rox down, to, like, knock him out of the Domi Reversi. And, like, we know that he was, like, on very, very low health by the time he got undomi Reversi'd. And part of that may have, I mean, we do not have confirmation if Dory or Bragi have Conqueror's Haki. I don't think we've seen any indication that they do. Loki and Harald are, I think, the only two giants, possibly, that we've seen that have Conqueror's Haki. But we haven't seen anything about Dory and Bragi having it, which makes it a different situation, because like Harald was able, or Rox was able to fight back because he had Conqueror's Haki, so he was able to fight back against their Haki with his own Conqueror's Haki, which makes a difference. So there is kind of the question of like, okay, so Roger and Garp, they did do enough damage against Rox to essentially like kind of get him down to like 1 or 2 HP, and that was enough to knock him out of the Domi Reversi. But then he was like on the ground and he got ended by Garling. So there's like the question of like, okay, so had Rox been knocked out of the Domi Reversi, like had Rox, or had Roger and Garp managed to essentially, had they sliced off Rox's head, which was not a move I think they wanted to go for, because they didn't know that was what would be something that would like flip him back to normal, was that. And, that may have been like, had they pulled that off, and like Roger had his sword, he had Ace, so he could have used that in order to slice off Rox's head or do something else that would have been enough of a fatal wound to knock Rox out of Domi Reversi enough that he would flip back and be fairly back to normal, but back to a decent amount of health, and he could have then tried to escape. But that's not what was going on. I mean, Rox wanted them to kill him in order to stop him, because he knew that he was going to go after Eris and Teach and go after other innocents, and he didn't want to hurt them. So there's like that question there that I'm sure is going to get brought up with like, okay, we now have new rules to add to the Domi Reversi playbook. For the Domi Reversi drinking game, we have new rules to add. So we'll see how that pans out, how that plays out. like, again, I don't think we have any indication. Dory and Bragi have Haki. That is true. But I don't think we know if they have Conqueror's Haki. And that might be one of the big differences here, because Rox had Conqueror's Haki. Xebec had Conqueror's Haki. And he could use that to kind of try to, negate some of the stuff of Garp and Roger fighting against him. So, some of that. Well, that's what I have here. This would have been up a little earlier, but I was at my mom's work because I was helping her with something where I was making a list of the books that she has that are Nebraska or Midwest-based books that she has for her collection. And I'm like, you can't bring these home. We have too many books at home already that you don't have room for. Says the girl who would like to order all of the One Piece volumes. And a bunch of other manga. That I would have places for them. I love my mom. But that's what I have. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.